Comic Binge presents a sub-series dedicated to one of the most divisive and imaginative mainstream comic book runs ever created with an iconic character. This is Knights Never Die, Grant Morrison's Batman, issue by issue. Tonight we continue with Act 1 of our journey, Knight versus Clow. Hello, welcome back to Knights Never Die, Grant Morrison's Batman issue by issue here on the Comic Binge. I am co-host Chris Clow, and we're back with an issue that gets us back into the ongoing dynamic narrative driven by writer Grant Morrison on the main Batman title. And tonight we have finally arrived at the first note of the Danse Macabre and the opening shot of Grant Morrison's defining arc as steward of this title. And tonight I'm very pleased to be joined once more by my partner in crime fighting, from the Flash up to speed with Wally West, 007 Files, reviewer extraordinaire at Batman on Film, and Comic Binge mainstay, Mr. Javi Trujillo. How are you, my friend?
Good, tired, a little bummed. I only just now realized right before we were about to record that Daredevil dropped tonight, 2 episodes. I don't know if I'm in Starfleet Academy mode, but for some reason I thought that Thursday nights were Daredevil nights. So when I made my selection of what we were going to watch together tonight, I'm like, well, let's press on with Jessica Jones so we can finish season 3. Since she's on this season of Born Again. And when we finished the episodes, clicked on YouTube, I'm like, why are all these reaction videos for Daredevil up? I'm like, it's not even out yet. And then I went back to Disney Plus and was like, oh. for whatever reason, of the 8 episodes, they're once a week, except for today, it's episode 2 and 3. And now the odds do not look good for me to get to watch them at all this week, which really sucks because I had my shot and missed it. So,
oh well, I'm sorry, man, but we're glad to have you here.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to be here. This has been a long time coming.
It certainly has. And on that note, of course, we are also joined by my fellow Comic Binge founding father. You know him from virtually every stream on this channel, Mr. Paul Herman. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I am Trinity. I like that. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just I feel like I'm getting back in the swing of things. Since football season's finally over, I've been able to like have the weekends to read comics, and like I have like my good friends comic book club that's independent from the Comic Binge. They gave me a very, very big old comic to read. And I've been reading that, trying to pick away at that, but I feel like also I'm getting caught up. I'm just reading a lot more comics in general. I'm getting excited. I need to talk to you guys about the next couple of months. So, some ideas I had. So I'm just getting back to the swing of things. I'm feeling good. Got this really rad Steranko. I mean, you guys can see, Steranko, Hulk poster I got at Goodwill for like $20.
Nice.
Like that is...
It's pretty epic.
Chef's kiss. It's pretty dope. I have like a small version over there, or I had a small version, but now I'm like, Steranko, giant size, hell yeah. So anyway, I don't care if he's insane. So whatever. That's all I'll say about that. If you want to look on his line, what he says, there you go. Anyway, yeah, I'm excited to be back, and we had a big layoff of episodes. We had one at the very beginning with Rob, the Gen 13 episode, and then this one. So it's just funny. So I think next month we'll have a few more than this month, Lord willing. So we'll see.
Well, hey, we all got a lot of stuff going on, so we'll certainly do what we can, and we always appreciate. One of the things that I think is challenging with a relatively small channel like ours is that it's really hard to break through at times. The algorithm, of course, is something that prizes hate and division more often than not, unfortunately. And we don't give you that on the Comic Binge ever.
Nope.
You know, we give you our honest
I'll
perspectives
once in a while.
Well, but I mean, not for the sake of being
Clickbaity.
divisive. You know, we
Yeah,
certainly don't get paid for doing this. We do this because we love it, and
Yes.
and that's one of the reasons why, if you do find value in the show, please, you know, give us your like, your subscription, ring the bell for instant notifications when a
Build
new
morale.
item is available for you to view, and certainly just you know, tell your friends about us. That's also really important. We're trying to sort of bring that, the camaraderie that you find when you go into a comic shop on new release day, to this channel. And we always appreciate anytime someone new comes aboard and comes along for the ride with us. Of course, Nights Never Die is a little slow going, but you're never going to get a shortage of the passion for these stories. And especially from this point forward, it's going to get pretty crazy. In terms of
say the least.
I don't think we're going to get crazy, but the tenor of the stories ramps up very significantly from this point forward. If you're reading along this run with us for the first time, then you are in for an acid trip, hydrochloric, that is, right? So,
So we're what, 18 years since this issue came out?
yeah,
18
just
years.
about
That's
a couple
wild.
of months.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, this issue is almost old enough to vote, not quite old enough to rent a car, but it's getting there, you know. But of course, today we are going to be diving in to Batman Volume 1, number 676, released on May 14th in 2008 with a cover date of June. There was a slight delay for this issue. My understanding is that the solicitation went out in January for a potential release in April, but actually, Batman 676 came out just a couple of weeks before Final Crisis number 1. So they were kind of neck and neck in terms of the initial rollout. Final Crisis would go through some pretty significant scheduling delays of its own, particularly by the time the story ended. But as we will go over in Nights Never Die in all due time, these stories are really important to be read kind of in tandem, particularly as it relates to the future of Bruce Wayne in the DC universe. So this was already a very eventful time in the popular cultural history of the Batman, since we were only 2 months and some change away from the theatrical bow of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. I think it's pretty fair to say that I don't know if it got to Batmania levels in 66 and 89 respectively, but it was certainly elevated. One of the more elevated Batman hype trains that I've certainly ever seen in my lifetime. And it's just all the more fascinating that DC was like, yeah, let's run with this really kind of ethereal and disconnected from reality kind of story in our main flagship Batman title. The issue, of course, was written by Grant Morrison with pencils by Tony Daniel, inks by Sandu Florea, and colors by Guy Major. Not only was Batman big in pop culture at this time, but DC was all in on Batman R.I.P., as comic book publishers are wont to do. They crafted a series of multiple arcs in each major Bat title of the time, roping in the creative teams of Detective, Robin, Nightwing, and even Batman and the Outsiders to make this a line-driven, I almost said story, but that's not true. This was an event. Reading the core issues of Batman R.I.P. were really the only major indication that you got from the Morrison run. Everything else that had an R.I.P. banner above it didn't have an abundance of relevance to the story that's told in these issues. It was Robin and Nightwing kind of reacted to what was going on in R.I.P., but for the most part, if you wanted to know what was happening with Batman himself as it pertains to R.I.P., this was the book you needed to read. Though I did really like Paul Dini's Heart of Hush. I have no idea why it needed to have R.I.P. on its trade dress, but it's a good story, worth reading. So overall relevance to R.I.P. proper was limited from those things, but this is the main event. This is what everybody had been building to up until this point. Grant Morrison had been dropping cryptic hints about what R.I.P. was going to contain for months before this. According to an interview with him, this was apparently the first story that he had pitched to Peter Tomasi, who was the editor on the Batman books at the time. But they decided to run it through its course a little bit more to work up to R.I.P. So let's start, as we typically do, with our most basic contemporaneous impressions from our first reading. When did we first read this? How did we feel once we close the back cover? We'll get to story specifics. I just want your vibes. Paul, I assume that you read this for the first time very recently, and I'm dying to know how you felt coming out of it.
Can you throw up the traditional cover for me? Thank you. For the record, I got back into comics a few years before this, so I was getting dead center into mainstream comics, and really being interested. And I had seen this peripherally again, this cover is just chef's kiss. It's a beautiful, beautiful cover. I mean, Alex Ross just nails it, man. It's funny. Absolute came out today. I bid a big in stock purchase today, but that was on it, not because I don't like it or I don't know it yet, but
it was not on it.
I did not buy the Absolute.
Oh.
No, I bought a bunch of other stuff though. So I spent over $100. Let's just say that. But Batman Dark Patterns was. So I'm very excited.
I mean, I'm not knocking Dark Patterns. I'm just waiting for something more prestigious. I mean, I waited 2 years and we finally got the solicits for Gotham City Year One for a deluxe edition. So Dark Patterns has got to get one because it's too good of a story to not have multiple.
I want to read it. I want to read it physically. I read the first issue by digitally, and I'm like, nope, I gotta stop and read this physically. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited. We're definitely gonna be covering that here soon, whenever I get done. So anyway, so R.I.P. I knew was leading to the rumors of Batman's dying, all that. I figured something was coming down the pike, and I just remember there was a lot of buzz around this book and this cover, especially just as all, through the years, I just kept seeing it. I know R.I.P. is very controversial for some people, but I always love this cover. I know when Chris was Ryan Lauer, other people too. But when Chris gave me this trade, I was very interested in reading it. I've heard a lot of, interesting things about R.I.P. Nothing really concrete about it, but anyway, before I get into my thoughts, I want to make sure I'm remembering everything correctly, guys. Is Dr. Hurt the guy from Robin Dies at Dawn?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I didn't want to look it up in case I got spoiled on something in the future. So I was like, I'll just ask the guys, which I assumed. Yeah. So reading this issue, when I first brought up, they have the group of people. I was like, okay, I love me a ragtag team. Love them. Love it. I love it. I love a good mystery in comics. I love new villains or villains I haven't seen in a long time. Yes, thank you. And I have no idea any of these characters off the top of my head. So I'm very excited to get into this. And knowing what we've read already in the comic books with how he's tying all these old characters and these old storylines together and bringing them all together or whatever, is just reading this first couple of pages. I'm like, oh man, this is definitely going to be very interesting. I'm very excited. That first couple of pages alone made me go, okay, I'm getting jazzed for this. And as a 22-page periodical comic book coming out, it does Grant Morrison, just a punches above his weight, man. He just kills it. I mean, he packs so much in here, but yet there's a page, I'm sure you put the page up on here, where Alfred and Tim are talking, and it's just like dialogue city, just bleh, exposition, blah blah blah, but it's interesting because you're developing the story, you're pushing the narrative, but also maintaining like these two characters interacting together, which is really pivotal. And I loved it. I love seeing the I didn't know, I don't know the girl's name. I always forget her name, so bear with me.
Jezebel.
Jezebel, thank you. So Jezebel being revealed as like she knows Bruce. I didn't know if they're gonna tap dance around that. This is the first time we're acknowledging that like she full on knows, and they're good about it as they bang, before they go see his parents, and everything. So like, I just the way he orchestrates this whole book about introducing like the new Batmobile, Tim and Batman's relationship, Robin and Batman's relationship at the time, the reveal, like the thing about Batman and Robin will never die that we get revealed at the very beginning. That's the future. That's his whole, this whole thing is based on, the Batman and Robin will never die. I love it. It's great. Yeah, it's just a really good like story that it's a short comic book that you just want to know more and more and more. And it just keeps me, I'm engaged, to be honest. And I like this issue a lot. I mean, I really have no complaints. The Joker reveal is cool at the end. That it's it's just, again, this is Grant Morrison shows you what you can do in 22 pages or 20 whatever pages, and it's great. And the one thing I will say is Tony Daniels, his art reminds me more of Andy Kubert in this comic book. It really feels like his layouts are great. His layouts I think are what really stand out for him. I've always said that before, but this book specifically just feels more Andy Kubert to me. Like he's doing his best Andy Kubert. Like I'm trying to hone in on that, like the way I'm drawing my figures, not his layouts. I think in the end, I think Daniels is probably a better layout artist than Andy is. Like Andy's not bad, but I think Tony really excels in page storytelling. But it feels more like Andy's trying to, or Tony's trying to do more Andy impersonation in here. Again, maybe it's not purposeful, but that's what it feels like. Like, especially like the page where Jezebel and Bruce are at the gravesite, and it's a big it's a big like overlay. Yeah, it's like the two panels, and this feels very Andy Kubert to me. Just the way it's laid out and everything. The figures, the faces, the facial structures, the whole wavy of hair with like it feels very Andy Kubert to me. So, anyway,
because to me it reads more Jim Lee.
But I feel like Andy also is using. There's a lot of Jim Lee and Andy too, though. To be honest, I feel like because back in the day when he took over for X-Men, yeah, I mean, like he kind of like kept that up a little bit. So I feel like it's all like, kind of, yeah. Anyway, you're not wrong, but it goes back to, I think he's not being himself, because I saw Tony Daniels being himself and like, it felt like, didn't he do the art for the Ra's al Ghul story? Like with Grant?
Did he do part of it? I don't remember.
Maybe I'm wrong. Either way,
I think he did I think it was a jam issue. Chris, do you remember?
Kubert?
Or am I just no, that Tony Daniel did the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul?
No, he did 670 because that they were making a big deal about.
Was it all? Did he have some fill-ins on a couple pages?
I thought it was entirely his, because they laid out the red carpet for him on that.
It might just be me reading that the whole trade in one sitting. That's where I'm getting confused.
Well, and I apologize. Yeah, I'll end with this: is that Tony Daniel? I think Tony Daniel's been great. I love this. It has not been. Andy Kubert. I love Andy Kubert's art a lot. I'm a big fan of the Kubert brothers. It's kind of controversial. I would prefer Andy over Adam. That's just me. Adam's a great artist too, but I like Andy's art. For something, I resonate with Andy's art a lot. Probably because of X-Men after Jim Lee. But regardless, it feels like Tony Daniel's doing a lot of Andy Kubert stuff in here, and it actually works. He works really well, and I like this is a great page. Just a lot of really great standout moments here. I really like this issue. I mean, it's hard for me to love a 22-page comic. You know, I need like they exist, but like it's hard. But I like this as much as close to loving it. Does that make sense? It's a great 22-page comic.
Yeah, makes sense. Javi, where were you when Batman 676 came out?
I was here. Well, not in this exact location, but in this city. We'd been here for a year or two at this point, and just this was to bring it back to the Dark Knight and the whole pop culture in general at the time. Like this was a few months after Heath Ledger had passed away, and there was this mystique and aura about what his Joker was going to be and bring to the table. And there was a part of me as we got closer to this where I was almost getting apprehensive because there was something about the vibes to this that just hit differently and not in the usual like, oh, they're not going to kill Batman because he's Batman. There was something off about it this time where it didn't feel safe, which was weird because we were heading into a major movie. I mean, we had no idea the impact it was going to have, but it was still it was part of the tapestry of the time, and it's like they can't. There's such a thing between corporations and synergy when they release these movies, like especially with like Marvel, where you'll see, Mysterio's the villain in Far From Home, so let's have a miniseries that has Mysterio in it, that kind of thing. So it was very odd circumstances around this storyline and what was going to happen, and it had this aura of unpredictability. And this cover, I mean, it got obviously solicited early and just breathtaking. And it was a no-brainer for me a month ago when the facsimile edition came out with the foil cover for me to get this, because even though I've got the original, I've got the deluxe, I just ordered the absolute. I mean, this is like an all-time iconic Batman cover and Alex Ross cover, and there's a Superman version too, which you haven't seen. You should go track down because it's beautiful. But all of it was leading to this issue and all the groundwork that comes from it, and Paul's not even going to appreciate it until another 6 months from now when we're all said and done, because this is definitely, even reading it last night again to take like the screen caps, it's like, oh, there's so many little things here that are going to pay off in 6 months down the road or a year down the road. And to quote Anakin Skywalker, this is where the fun begins. So that's my general impressions from 2008.
Excellent. Yeah, I had a bit of a whirlwind with this one myself, I have to admit. Well, first of all, one thing I want to bring up that I think I'm perhaps a little unusually fixated on is the cover, and not the Alex Ross cover, actually the Tony Daniel cover. Because, and let me see, I don't think I put it on here. Let me see if I can.
Is this the one that's on the screen, not the one you're thinking of?
This is my fixation. All right. The version that you're seeing now is actually, I think, the third printing standard cover. For some reason, the internet has this weird misconception that this is the first print variant by Tony Daniel. This is actually the first print variant by Tony Daniel.
Okay.
So, but you won't find this version of the cover in any collection. The Virgin version that doesn't have the trade dress, doesn't have the issue number, the credits or the barcode, is not online in high resolution anywhere. And this is the version that I bought on release day. I mean, I bought both of them, but because of course I did. But this one I picked up. I got this one signed by Mr. Morrison when I met Morrison at the San Diego Comic-Con in 2008. So this issue was just a couple of months old back then. But for whatever reason, the internet has a misconception about it. DC isn't making this version of the cover, the Virgin version, widely available for whatever reason. But I like this one too. My understanding of the covers is that Morrison was rather intimately involved with the way that they look. I mean, here the symbolism is very clear. He's falling into the glove. And he doesn't look great about it. But the standard cover too, my understanding is that it resulted from a sketch that Morrison did. Javi, when you have the Absolute Edition, you might have to look in the back matter. They might include that. Paul, it might be the back of the deluxe edition that you have. I'm not sure exactly, but the cover was ubiquitous. It was everywhere, of course. We had a big poster of it in the comic shop that I worked at this time. I was so ready for this issue because I was on the train for the Morrison Batman run. By the time I read it, I felt a little disappointed at that time because the hype train was so high and I expected far too much from a first issue at that time. I was, a naive 20-year-old. Was I 21? No, I was 20. Yeah, I was 20 when this came out. And I was just expecting like the secrets to be spilled in issue number 1 for, I don't know why, but I did. And that led to a little bit of an anticlimax for me upon my first reading. As the years have gone on and I've read this story in its totality more and more, I mean, I've read this story probably at least a dozen times over the course of the past 20 years or close to it. I think this is a brilliant first issue. Took me a while to come around to it, but reading it in collected form, I think, is what gave me a greater appreciation for this as a first chapter. Because, it shifts between different perspectives. We move into, the ethereal, dreamlike state of the Joker there at the end, which was initially very disorienting for me. But Paul, what you said about, the dialogue being there and the exposition being so heavy, it also brings home all of the threads that we've absorbed up to this point in a way that is very efficient, but it also has a fun action sequence in there just to keep the pace up. It probably wasn't needed, but I love when Batman and Robin actually take the guy down. Hold on for me 1 second. Take over.
You're good. I will. I to comment on what Chris said about the exposition and the dialogue. I hope Javi, I made this very clear when I said it, because I think Chris, you guys understood it. For those who weren't paying attention or wondering, I don't say that in a bad way, because the dialogue is okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't think you did. Sorry. I got a new TV recently, and so there's a lot of boxes, and a cat decided to knock one over. So thankfully, nothing serious.
Son of a bitch.
Did you?
Yeah. And I didn't think that you did. Because you mentioned being engaged in what was being said, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But like the action moment, the way that this one ends, you're on bad drugs in a Halloween suit with about a dozen cameras recording your complete loss of self-respect. Hit me. No, I love that. Because that's Tim, like the characters are always so pitch perfect, and we get just the slightest moment of levity here. There is some foreshadowing on this page that you won't really know as foreshadowing until you read later parts of the story, but it is absolutely there. There it is. And as a first chapter, this is a really great opening salvo with a frenetic pace, but it also doesn't go too fast. It gives you those slower contemplative character moments without just barreling through with the subtlety of a Mack truck. No, there's a lot of substance here, and there's service to the journey that we've all gone on with this title at this point, in a way that I didn't appreciate at the time, because I was craving new information very impatiently, Like I was like, I want to know what's going on. Let's get. I know all this. Let's get to the point. But I didn't appreciate the layering that was taking place over the course of these pages, and I certainly do now.
What's
and yeah,
we haven't gotten to the recap of the issue, but just looking at the images, something that always strikes me on rereads is the fact that these characters exist outside of this issue. Like, if you read it, it almost feels like you're missing events to a degree, because like Tim goes on and talks about things, and there's just all this stuff going on in the background for these characters' lives, and stuff that's happening off panel that we don't really see, but it happened for them, and it matters for them and how they see the world, and what the context of their lives is. That I find like really fascinating. Like Tim has this whole conversation about everything he's gone through, but how there's something that's keeping him up at night, and we don't really get to see it anywhere else. But it's still going on in the background for them. Like we're only catching this one little glimpse into their world, but there's stuff that's happening all the time. And as their lives move forward, and it's just kind of interesting that Morrison has all this in their head, and is just percolating with all these ideas.
Well, and that was one of the things that I think makes this era of DC as sharp as it really seems to read, at least to me. I mean, I'm biased because I was heavily engaged at this time. I was reading pretty much every book, not only because it helped me sell them more effectively, but because I was legitimately enamored with what they were doing in the DCU at this time. But Javi, you mentioned just like this moment here, this is referencing stuff that happens to Tim back in Identity Crisis, through Teen Titans, through Infinite Crisis, and the Ringer is not done with this poor kid yet.
Yeah, and adopted by Batman was Gotham Knights, which never gets talked about enough. I feel like
it was Face to Face. When he was
right. Yeah,
I think he took him in more in Gotham Knights, but at the end of Face to Face is the moment. That's right before.
Yeah. Right
Batman
before we got into this, yeah,
but I mean, but the point is still, I think the point is still well taken. That's not a milestone moment that is talked about a lot. And granted, Tim Drake has been through a hell of a lot over the past 15 years, so that maybe the lead has been buried a little bit on that front. But in any event, I mean, because you had Morrison, Johns, Rucka, and Wade working so close together on 52. So the editorial coordination was really, really succinct and clear. But when you read those moments from Tim, when you read those recountings, it doesn't batter you over the head with the idea that, hey, go read these comic books to get the full context. No, it's just like, I've been through a lot, and I'm about up to here with everything that I'm going through. And then this kid comes along and he's my brother. Is he really my brother? And of course, he deduces, right? But now I'm getting into plot, so maybe we should move over to the story details, and then we can properly unpack this a little bit more. So, the main event, Midnight in the House of Hurt in Batman number 676. The solicitation released by DC in January of 2008 reads as follows: Are you ready for Batman R.I.P? Beginning the epic story that will change the legend of the Dark Knight forever. Classic marketing hyperbole. Everything in Grant Morrison's groundbreaking run on Batman has been leading to this story, and nothing will ever be the same again. Who will live? Who will die? Who will be Batman? The answers are sure to shock you in Batman R.I.P., featuring artwork by Tony Daniel and Sandu Florea and covers by Alex Ross. So here is a quick and dirty recap of the issue written by me upon my most recent reading.
Really quick before you begin, Chris.
Yeah, sure.
2026 lens, do you feel the solicit was hyperbole, or does it live up to that for you?
I think it's kind of half and half personally, because the answer about the mantle is certainly not answered definitively in RIP, unless you take the very last couple of pages as literally as possible. But at the time, I certainly didn't quite know what I knew. I had my hopes, but I don't think that question was definitively answered. Did it change the legend of the Dark Knight forever? I go back and forth on that. I think you can make a case that yes, especially considering how much reverence modern creators seem to have for these stories. But forever is a long time, you know.
I mean, Zur-Anar has been very prominent in the last couple of years in the modern Batman title.
Yeah, sure.
So
Absolutely. I guess I chafe at the word forever because we are but a blip in time, right? And who knows?
but Batman is forever.
I like to hope so, but on the long arm of the universe, Batman hasn't existed for very long either, and we got a ways to go before our candle burns out, you know. So who knows? But
It's right there on the screen.
I believe it. I believe it personally, for what it's worth. So, quick and dirty recap, authored by yours truly. In the light of a crimson sky, Batman and Robin proclaim that they will never die. Guess where the name of this show came from? 6 months earlier, a disfigured Quasimodo-esque murderer known as Le Bossu has arrived at the doorstep of the Black Glove. Dr. Hurt proclaims that the man Le Bossu just murdered will have forged evidence of suicide placed upon his body, covering up the deed and ensuring Le Bossu's trust. Dr. Hurt tells him to take his seat for the beginning of the Danse Macabre. Elsewhere in Gotham, a lunatic called the Green Vulture has stolen the car of a wealthy family before being quickly pursued and apprehended by Batman and Robin in a new Batmobile. The dynamic duo discuss some recent events, with Batman reflecting on his recent near-death experience and his focus on the Black Glove case. They return to Wayne Manor, Bruce into the waiting, loving arms of Jezebel Jet. Tim and Alfred talk downstairs, with Alfred comparing her to Silver St. Cloud and Sacha Bordeaux. Robin asks Alfred what he thinks about the recent trauma related to the Thogel ritual in Nanda Parbat, but Alfred says there's no reason to doubt Bruce's mind, the integrity of Bruce's mind. Tim asks if Bruce has verified Damien's parentage. While Alfred refuses to divulge the truth, Tim deduces it and knows that Damien is indeed his brother, a Wayne by blood. Bruce and Jezebel visit the graves of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Jezebel insists his parents would be proud, and Bruce mentions he's connecting the dots on something big. But she then mentions another mystery, an invitation from a very secret society. She sees promise in the fundraising possibilities. The invitation to Bruce Wayne and Jezebel Jet comes from the Black Glove. Bruce is visibly shocked and asks to see it. Elsewhere, the front door to what appears to be the Arkham Mansion hangs open with blood spilled on its entry stairs. We enter, and the space becomes monochrome, save for the blood splattered everywhere. The Joker is standing near the mutilated bodies of Robin, Jim Gordon, and Nightwing. A Rorschach made of blood is splattered on the floor. But in our world, an Arkham doctor is showing a Rorschach blot to the Joker, asking what he sees. He replies only, "Another pretty flower." But the lights then go out. Le Bossu has invited the Joker to the Batman's dance of death. Joker's only reply is, "Another pretty flower." And that's Batman number 676. So I know Paul isn't thrilled with the Clown at Midnight.
Let's put it mildly.
To put it mildly, but you know, as someone who legitimately loves that issue even now, and if you haven't seen our discussion about it, please check out the very animated conversation in a previous Nights Never Die episode where we talk about Batman number 663 in detail. But this is a bit of a full circle moment from there. You know, this is the culmination of the Joker that we first glimpsed in 655 when he takes that bullet to the head, and it clearly knocks something even loopier than was already pretty loopy. And I remember just being utterly kind of disgusted by these pages. There's something about the imagery of him in that billowing trench coat. It was like it
kind of like a sleeveless dentist.
Yeah, with razor blades in his hands, in each hand, right? Like that's
yeah.
It's a dentist from hell, almost literally, not literally, but almost. Um, and like I'm deeply unsettled, but of course incredibly enamored with this characterization of the Joker. But the Joker is really kind of secondary to everything else that goes on here. And again, this is all set up. This is just a first issue. And I like I said in that first reading, I rushed through that rushed to that final Another Pretty Flower, and was unsatisfied because my questions remained unanswered. And it would be a few months before they started to become more answered. But yeah, this is a really strong first issue for this arc. I'll be interested to see how our perceptions maybe change as we go over the final 5 issues of the story after this point. But what a story here, man. What do you got, Javi?
When we were talking about it earlier, and Paul was saying he sees a lot of Kubert in it, I'm like, I see more Jim Lee. And now looking at these images, it's like, okay, I'll give some props to Paul. Like there is something very Kuberty about the layouts, and especially this opening. I only have this one page, but like the staging, the paneling, there's something very cinematic about how we move through the images, the framing of them, how the credits pop up. And when we finally get to like the reveal of all these new villains that we're going to be encountering over the next year or so, it's really strong. And we get that Batman breaking the panel, this image of them again breaking the panel, like that image to me does feel very Kubert. So I am gonna have to agree with Paul now. Like, okay, I do see what you're talking about now, and feel
what it is
impact.
It's honestly it's Jezebel, the way he draws her, and it's not I don't think it's like overly like ridiculously, it's just a beautiful woman, right? Which is that's not a comic artist's problem usually, but it's the way he draws her, and it's a simplification in the face, but also the hair is really big and wavy, and not like completely. It's not like Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane crazy, but it's like it's kind of like the next level down. And that is like something that I always think of Jean Grey. Like it feels very Jean Grey hair when he was drawing the X-Men. And just like how it's positioned and everything, and like this whole picture, I totally see Kubert. Like this and the Grave picture 1000%. So I'm glad you came around a little bit, because I'm like, this is totally Kubert when I see this.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because Morrison in the interviews leading up to this was talking about sexy, bare-chested, hairy-chested Batman, from like the Neil Adams era, and we do get to see a lot of those romantic aspects that had kind of fallen by the wayside, brought back to the fore, especially like in this conversation between Tim and Alfred, and he's regaling Tim with mentions of like Silver St. Cloud and a couple other past love interests, and now that we have Jezebel Jet into the fold, so there's a whole bunch of different elements that Morrison is bringing together in it. And even just like with Tim pointing out, like, you only died for 4 minutes, Bruce, and there's like this slight smirk on Batman's face, and you can see that he's starting to enjoy himself. And I think that's kind of pivotal, because it's not something we see very often. But if that's something you like, where Batman's serious but still able to appreciate the life that he has, maybe check out Matt Fraction's Batman right now as well. See what you think.
There you go. Paul, is there anything in particular about the story that you wanted to talk about?
No, just that I really love the fact that remembering that Dr. Hurt was from the because again, I just kind of forget, just whatever, but the fact that he's tied into, like, he's tying in this really crazy old story and all these old things and trying to make it all work in a very compelling way so far is just really fascinating and really cool. And Grant Morrison has struck a balance of being the Dark Knight, but also have it be fun and superhero like comic books. And I think that to me is what is so pivotal, because so many people can only do one or the other. And it's so hard to be balanced in anything. I mean, right? Like anything in life, it's hard to have balance because it's easy to go one way or the other. It is. It's easier. It's, more seductive, if you will. It's really hard to maintain that balance. And if you can, you can, find something special within that. And I think with this is a great example of what we're getting so far. Again, remains to be seen for me if it sticks to landing, but so far reading these issues, guys, I've only been enjoying it. And I do appreciate the balance of getting fun. Like, you know what it feels like that Grant Morrison is tapped into, and this is going to be really weird, stupid, but it just kind of dawned on me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick with it. Grant Morrison is, to me, literally Denny O'Neil meets Frank Miller, a literal amalgam of both the writers' minds, because Denny O'Neil could have fun and do like Batman, like fun stories. And then, but it could have a little bit of darkness, but then Frank Miller brings in that like gravitas, like that little artsiness, the something that's more than a comic book and a little more morality, and just a little more seriousness to it. And Denny O'Neil always did that too, but like Frank Miller's at next level. It feels like Grant Morrison is literally those two people put together, where he's able to really bring in a higher level of a superhero story, but yet still maintain that funness that Denny O'Neil usually always kind of balance on. And I feel like it's, those are two great legends, but Grant Morrison's, though, like if for his Batman run so far, that's what it feels like to me, because Frank Miller could do he's a very serious Batman, but Denny O'Neil could do has a good variety of Batman, but the type of stories that like that gravitas that like Frank had that Denny didn't always have, that's what Grant Morrison is so far. So I know that's probably a take, but I'm sticking with it right now.
That's an interesting amalgamation that you've concocted there. I didn't expect you to do that. Javi, when you read the first issue here the first time, do you remember having a decent amount of buy-in to the run up to this point? And were you on a similar hype train that I was on for R.I.P. generally, or did you have a different experience?
No, I think I was definitely hyped for it. I said, talking about like, the movie was coming, and Batman definitely felt like there was an upward trajectory, even if I didn't quite see all the pieces at the time. But I mean, even looking at like this page, the Batman logo being in that specific circular shape, to me, like, was reminiscent of Nightfall, which I felt was kind of like a subliminal push, like Nightfall, Batman went away for a little bit. R.I.P. It's red. It's soaked in blood. Like, it was kind of combining Nightfall and the Death of Superman logos. And, it's just one of those things where you can't see the forest for the trees per se. And I was definitely very invested in where this was going. And it gets more and more meaningful and impactful the more I revisit it. But I can see where you're coming from, how you were disappointed back then. I don't remember feeling disappointed, but not seeing but definitely not understanding how all the pieces fit together. And that was tempered with the whole mention of Robin dies at dawn, and that this is Dr. Hurt. And I liked seeing all these elements being coalesced into one long narrative, especially as we go forward and we see other elements from prior decades of Batman like make their way into the forum, and acknowledging that history, because that, like I've said on other shows, and my dad would give me older stuff instead of buying new stuff off the rack, because that was what he was familiar with. So he would go to the used bookstore and get me like a 80-page giant of like World's Finest that would have, Superman and Batman trying to woo a princess while Vicky Vale and Lois Lane were jealous off on the sidelines. So to see, weird stories like that, and then have them kind of count to a Batman for today who had basically been rebooted with the aforementioned Frank Miller in year one, and that grounded take. It was nice to have some of the super heroic elements woven back into this, and even more so by the time we get to Final Crisis, like it goes off the chain with it. So
yeah,
I liked where we were headed, even though I had no idea where we were going at this point.
Oh, sure. Yeah, same. Well, this issue certainly reads briskly in the best ways, I think, now, especially.
It's really weird because it is a fast issue. Your recap was really fast, but at the same time, like there's so much depth that you can get out of it if you just slow down and take it in,
Definitely. I mean, and we don't have an abundance of time to go into the composition of every page, but there is a lot to be mined from lingering on different pages at different times. Part of the cruelty, I guess, of reading R.I.P. fresh is that you don't necessarily know what elements that are rendered in those pages are going to pay off for you a little bit by the time you get to parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 in particular. But you could tell that a lot of the character work in particular. I mean, the plot, of course, is front and center here, but without the character work to bolster it, it might be a little bit more of a plotting experience, not plodding experience, but it's not that, because you just have such clearly defined, but also definitive portrayals of a lot of the characters that we certainly love, along with some twisted detours for other characters that we have spent a significant amount of time with. So yeah, certainly worth.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, it's just worth your time.
I was just going to say, like, I'm glad that we included DC Universe 0 into this whole discussion, this series, because hitting the end of this issue where we're in this monochromatic vision, and like, what are our two primary like main colors that we're seeing here? But black and red, which my co-host is donning tonight. I don't know if that was intentional. I'm going to assume because he's Chris Clow that it was. But to have the whole, ha of it all, of the black and the red, and like it has a different impact looking at this spread, having had DC Universe 0 in the back of your mind as you go forward. And I assume that's the reason why it's included in most trades and hardcovers for this story.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Well, let's move over to the critical reception of the time. So we will start, as we typically do, with Comic Book Revolution's review by Rock, which, Rock has been very positive about the Morrison run so far, and this issue is no exception. The only exception that counts here is that the praise is a little more effusive than some of the other recent issues. Rock says he noted that while there's not an abundance of plot that really reveals what R.I.P. is about, which I also felt, it's a quality start that has an event feel. He says, quote, "The strength of this issue relies on Morrison's well-crafted plot that makes this a gripping read. The measured pace does its job in creating so much tension within the reader as we begin to see the Black Glove moving their plans into place. Batman 676 is a well-plotted issue. Morrison does a good job taking all of the previous story arcs from his run on this title and using them as bricks to lay the foundation for the Batman R.I.P. story arc. The reader gets the clear impression that Morrison knows exactly where he wants to go with this story arc, and that this has been carefully planned and constructed for quite some time. Yeah, agreed. And that also bears out with the facts, as Morrison has talked about in the subsequent years. IGN's review by Dan Phillips was also quite positive. He awarded the issue an 8.9 out of 10, which is great on their scale. And he said, quote, "The main reason I find the Black Glove's plot to destroy the Dark Knight so compelling is that I suspect Morrison is about to use the mysterious villain to transform Bats in some utterly bizarre, horrifying manner, one that we haven't seen a million times before. Granted, this is all conjecture as of now, but the overall strangeness and sophistication of this run so far tells me Morrison has earned the benefit of the doubt. I've already given in and am firmly positioned in the palm of his hands." Yeah, it took me a little longer to get there. You know, I think Final Crisis, reading the first issue of that, made things click for me for some reason, even though they're only tangentially related at this point. But that's just a personal thing. The BOF review for this issue is actually not by Bill Ramey. But instead, it is by our very good friend, Mr. John Beerley. But before I read this, I just have to say, you know, my love for John is eternal. Nothing is ever going to change that. I deeply value the friendship that I had with him. But, you know, he and I had a rather large divergence of opinion when it came to the Morrison Batman run. He wanted Bruce Wayne to really stay in the titles and be who he is at his best. He wanted Bruce Wayne stories. And how could you begrudge that of any Batman fan? Like I said before, I was 20 years old, and I was more than happy to sort of bend the Batman concept a bit more than some of my BOF brethren. If I was talking now to some snot-nosed 20-year-old comic book reviewer about some twist in the Bat titles, maybe I would feel the same way that John did back then about the Morrison run. But, you know, I think the tone of John's review of this issue was more just like cautious optimism. He was burned pretty recently, and I'll go into part of what he says. He says, Batman R.I.P., the latest crossover / event to change Batman's life forever, at the expense of fans' bank accounts, begins in the pages of Batman number 676. And kids, it's friggin' crazy. He went on to say, so many questions, so few answers. In many ways, this issue seems choppy and abrupt, and the ending feels like it comes way too quickly. It sets some things up, but I don't really feel a lot of momentum going into the next chapter. We'll just have to see what happens. And Grant, if you truly want to make a timeless Batman story, don't include so many pop culture references like American Idol and CD changers. I don't mind an event as long as it's good, but I think a lot of us still have bad tastes in our mouths after the mess that was the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. Will Batman R.I.P. be better? Let's all hope so. Give him hell, Grant. You always do. There was no numerical or letter grade attached to that review. So I get John's point. I really do. And I felt somewhat similar at the time. In the years since, my perspective only warmed. I think John's did too, but not a lot. Like, he certainly was pretty well set on what his opinions were about the run as kind of a Batman experiment overall. But, you know, with more distance from removing Batman from the ongoing titles, I think a lot of people's perspectives that were very, you know, much against those things was a bit softened. The very first audio conversation I ever had with John, we talked about some of this stuff. He had just interviewed Paul Dini for the release, the then new release at that time of the Arkham Asylum video game. And they had a pretty detailed conversation about the importance of Bruce Wayne to the larger concept of Batman. And, you know, how could you go wrong talking to Paul Dini and getting to the core essence of who Bruce Wayne is and what he's all about? but John shares a couple of other perspectives on the Morrison run as time goes on BOF. He actually did write an editorial about Morrison wagging the tail of the dog that is DC, by sort of imposing a particular direction on the Batman titles, and that did not sit well with him. But again, I get his perspective. He and I didn't agree, but that didn't get in the way at all of our friendship by any stretch of the imagination, which was just burgeoning at that point. So
I find it interesting, you pointing out that, just because my recollection of like his BOF profile picture, his review profile picture, was him holding like a deluxe edition of Detective Comics Elegy, which is when Kate Kane took over the book in the absence of Bruce Wayne.
Well, John was a huge Rucka fan, and I think he was more than happy to see what Rucka was going to do in the DC universe. I don't remember John being angry about Kate replacing Bruce as the main ongoing character in Detective. I think it maybe unsettled him a little bit, but he loved those stories first and foremost. And at his heart, he was a true storyteller through and through. He had a really effective way of communicating ideas, and he knew what good storytelling was. And when it didn't conform to what he wanted, he didn't hold back, but he wasn't rude about it. He didn't bash you over the head with it. It was a difference of opinion, and that was about it.
Amen.
Paul, I'm sorry. You looked like you were about to say something.
No, I'm good.
Let John speak for himself. Sure.
Hey. Sure. Amen.
Could do a lot worse. We miss you, my friend.
We do.
But that is Batman number 676. We're just getting started. I know this is the 20th episode of Nights Never Die. So that means we've read 20 individual comic books pretty much by this point. We talk about some other things early on, and you can check out the full playlist of Nights Never Die on the Comic Binge YouTube channel. So if you want to check out what we said about a particular issue before this point, please feel free to do so. Like and comment on them. We answer all of the comments. I think between Paul and I, and I know Javi has answered several as well. If you have a question or if you're interested in a perspective, you want us to expound on something, let us know in a comment, and you will get a response. I guarantee you, unless it's like, dye your hair, Chris, it's too gray. I know. It's like, I can't stop it. That's genetics. My dad was told he had like a white streak by the time he was 16. So I'm already self-conscious enough about it. Thank you very much.
But see, you're in your Discovery era, Chris Pike. And, soon you'll be in your Strange New Worlds Chris Pike era, and it'll be glorious like it is now.
I'm just jealous of both of you. You guys have the full color of both of your hair, and mine's going. It's going too fast.
It's thinning, but I'm really curious Paul's opinion of this Joker image. That's why I put it up here. Just what are your takes, Paul, on this design and the fact that he's got like the white outfit instead of like the traditional purple? He's got the forked tongue. Now that this isn't a prose issue with it done in paint, we've got the bullet hole from the start of Morrison's run smack between the eyes. What do you think of this aesthetic?
It's fine. I don't really have like it's just whatever. It's a Joker outfit. I need to see more of it in order for me to know if I like it or not. So we'll see. I don't have anything. I really have nothing to add. It was just like, okay.
Well, it's because you hated The Clown at Midnight, and I haven't read it to you yet. While you're in your jammies getting ready to go to bed. But
true.
We'll do that one of these days. You will lay down in your bed with your jammies and a nice nightcap on, and I'll get a mic. I'll sit next to you, and I will read you that story. I'm very adept at reading bedtime stories. To answer your question, Eric, not on Nights Never Die, just because we're sticking pretty close to the Morrison written stuff. But Heart of Hush is absolutely a candidate for another episode of the Comic Binge. I think
I would love to talk about that. Maybe when we get to Hush 2 Part 2.
Hey, there you go.
in
Yeah.
2030 at this rate.
Oh man, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, back when this was a podcast and those episodes aren't available anymore, we're actually going to work to try to make those available to people on the YouTube channel if they want to listen to those initial Comic Binge conversations. But Paul and I did do the first, I think it was 6 issues of Paul Dini's ongoing run on Detective that started in 2006, late 2006. Maybe it was early 07. But we have more to do. Like, that's such a readable run. There's so many done-in-ones in that run before it actually starts doing more multi-issue arcs. But Heart of Hush is absolutely worthy of a conversation, I think, at some point in the future. I can't tell you when, but if people keep banging the drum and they want us to talk about it, then it's no skin off my back. I got my Dini omnibus just in the other room, and I love cracking that sucker open at every opportunity. But that is Nights Never Die number 20. Javi, what would you like to inform people about before we dismiss for the evening?
Well, all sorts of things. I've got, obviously, you mentioned at the top of the show, Up to Speed with Wally West, my YouTube channel where I discuss all things Wally West and Flash. It's been a really busy March, and episodes I wanted to have out there did not get filmed, but I will be back talking absolute Flash. I want to do a whole big recap on that. Next episode of Wally's run will be the introduction of Chester P. Runk, otherwise named the Chunk. And what else do I got cooking? Batman on film. I am doing a series within a series on the main podcast where a guest and I do a show called Batteries to Power. You have a different guest every episode. And even Chop Harder Alchemist has been on an episode already where we're talking the Adam West Batman show since it's the 60th anniversary. So you can look forward to that on the main BOF channel, the YouTube, the page, all that kind of stuff. And then I also have the 007 files where we're on, I don't even remember what season we're on now, 3 or 4. And today's Tuesday. So coming this Thursday, we'll have an interview with the current president of 007 GB, which is the British James Bond fan club, talking about the fan club and all the opportunities they allow, and some other exciting things coming down the pike as we head towards 007 First Light, the video game. A new book just got announced today, in addition to the one that's already coming out in 2 months. So that's really exciting. And of course, maybe we'll get some news coming out of CinemaCon next month about maybe a release date. That's what I'm hoping for at the very least. I don't think they're going to announce a new Bond during Denis, wrapping up Dune stuff and everything else, but maybe we'll get a date because, now is the time for them to put their best foot forward. So
indeed. Yeah. Well said. Paul, is there anything you want to inform people about what's coming down from the Comic Binge in the weeks and months ahead?
Gonna be doing hopefully Green Lantern Earth 1 next month. And then in the next coming months before it comes out, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So boys, get your schedules ready and get those books read because Green Lantern was Javi's idea, but we're definitely going to go through Woman of Tomorrow in May probably. And then hopefully I'm going to try to see if we can get a Spider-Man Council episode, our top 5 favorite villains or Mount Rushmore villains, excuse me. Sort of
I still have my thumbnails ready to go.
So do I. Well, I did. I may have deleted them by now, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, just that, and go check out my music project, Victory Formation. If you haven't already, it's available on all different musical platforms. I cannot talk, and that's it.
Excellent. As for me, you can follow me on Blue Sky primarily. I'm also on Threads and Instagram. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but if someone says hi to me, I'll say hi back. At Chris Clow, CHRISCLOW. Check out Discovery Debrief, a Star Trek podcast if you haven't before. We are actually, from the day we're recording this on Tuesday, March 31st, we're getting the band back together tomorrow to break down episode 6 of Starfleet Academy season 1. Only one episode because there are other things to talk about in the Trek franchise, including the cancellation of Starfleet Academy and just kind of the state of the franchise going forward, which is in a very uncertain place, unfortunately. But we also have a cool opportunity coming up. I got confirmation today that we will have a chance to review a newly released Star Trek video game. So be sure to keep an eye on the Discovery Debrief feed for that. And we're going to finish rolling out episode recaps and discussions for Starfleet Academy Season 1. And we are also planning on getting together to do breakdowns of Season 3 of Strange New Worlds before Season 4 bows later this year. So check out Discovery Debrief if you haven't. And, be sure to keep it tuned to the Comic Binge for all the great discussions and comics that Paul and I have cooking up for you. Best way to stay in touch, as I said before, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about us if you are in the mood for good comic book conversation that doesn't try to suck nickels out of you at every opportunity or rage bait you. If you like the sound of that, then please come along for the ride. Next time on Nights Never Die, the Black Glove tightens its grip around the Dark Knight as the enemy makes its presence felt inside Batman's deepest domain. Until next time, please remember, Batman and Robin will never die. Sorry,